Hello and welcome to a painting that is almost as big as my tiny easel. It's being consumed as we speak. Send help! The actual surface here is only a 6x8. It just seems really large to me for some reason since I've been painting on 3x3s or sometimes smaller for all my little studies, which seems extra weird to me since my actual illustrations are like 18x24, so I don't know why I think this is big, but the head's kind of big, I guess, comparatively. Anyway. I'm going to talk about this portrait as I go, hopefully. This paper does have gesso, and then I drew on it with various pencils and sealed it with matte medium, so it's nice and smooth. And I started with the background first, mostly because that's what I've been taught, but also because sometimes I just want to do that. I don't always do every painting step exactly how I've been told. I instead kind of just try to figure out what I find enticing at the time, because I do want this to be enjoyable for me, so if I just follow a formula the whole time, that's not going to be very exciting. After I got a nice smooth background layer, I started going in really thinly in the darks of the hair and face. I can still sort of see the drawing underneath, which is really helpful since I don't have X-ray vision, and it would be a mystery if I went over it opaquely. I've done this many a time, and I'm trying to stop. I think that the transparent capabilities is really what brought me over to the oil side from acrylics. Just the fact that you can have such a vibrant color with bold brushstrokes and still be able to see some of the underpainting poking through just always seems so perfect and amazing. And I've been hoping to get to that point ever since. I've done a bit on larger paintings, but these are still a bit too daunting to film as of yet, and I'm having a lot of fun with these tiny easel paintings, so that's what we're doing. Another thing oil's great at, if you couldn't already have imagined, is blending. It can be a blessing or a curse depending on your desires, but it's always so satisfying to put a brush with pure white over a dark color and get it to a nice mid-tone in a few brush strokes. So easy, it's like Photoshop. Or not. I want to address that this cloak thing that she has on looks like a trash bag made of poop because I didn't get reference. Get reference! If you don't get reference after everyone literally tells you all the time to get reference, and you don't get it, because it can't be that hard, and then you don't get it, even though you know you should have, and then you show up with a tiny with a trash bag. Just get reference. So at some point here, I changed to a smaller brush. Oh no, we got very sidetracked. Don't worry. I typically start with a flat or a bright since it's easier to push the paint around, but once I start to have to do any amount of details, I have to switch to something smaller, lest my shaky hand glop paint right over an entire eyeball while trying to paint the tiny fold of the lid. One thing I seem a bit puzzled by with this recording is the lack of a real accurate depth of value that I have in the piece itself. It can't be the lighting since I have like 4 light bulbs pointed directly at it and it was boiling sitting in front of that, so it must be something to do with the camera, which is quite scary since the camera is much more complex than my own mind and I fear it greatly. I'm trying to salvage this cloak, I really am. I just... Get reference. Eyes are so complicated, and it's so easy to struggle with them if you let yourself get overwhelmed, but it's also so hard to simplify and feel like there's enough there, which makes them a great artistic challenge and also an extremely frustrating one at times, but I always try to keep them as simple as possible and just add a few nice bits of interest to keep it from looking too bland. Speaking of this brush, does anybody want to say a few words for the Robert Simmons brush discontinuation funeral? You will be missed. I mean, I have like 30 of these brushes, but you will be missed. Well, as it turns out, after a Google and looking at Daler Rowney's website, they might just be rebranding. So I stockpiled brushes for nothing. Yay. I feel like, especially in places like the face, I always have this constant back and forth internal dialogue of, do I want to see brush strokes, or do I want the smoothest painting known to man? And I change my mind every 8 minutes. But I feel like this strat of keeping it smooth as long as you can and then brush it up later seems to be working okay. The one main gripe I have with oil painting, especially when I get into smaller details, is that I can't touch it. It's always a risk when you try to go in there and just hope that your gentle pinky touch isn't going to wind up and fling itself directly into my poor, unsuspecting painting's face. It's not too bad, but it definitely feels like more of an arm workout where there isn't somewhere nice to rest. And I know about mahl sticks. I have one. I just don't like it. I like holding more brushes in my other hand like a little brush goblin. So I can't be using it on a mahl stick. But I might be being a stubborn little bugger, and I might have to make myself a tiny mahl stick in the near future. If you're curious about my reference or inspiration for this face, this is not a real model. I used 2 or 3 images on my iPad that is sitting next to the tiny easel. Considering I don't want all my paintings to look like me, and I also am terrified of humans, I have sort of gotten into the habit of using a mixture of myself, especially for the figure if it'll work, and then finding other sources for specific aspects and molding them into what I feel I need in the piece. It would be much easier in the long run if I just had a bunch of costumes and conventionally attractive models to photograph and copy directly for my painting, and I do want to get there. I think that's the smartest way to go if you're doing anything remotely resembling realism, but I also know that a lot of things I want to paint can't be modeled and maybe don't exist at all, like, say, a dragon, for instance. So I've been trying my best to start getting used to mentally or even literally Frankensteining, as some call it, my reference together to get something that more closely resembles my intended subject, and getting more comfortable with that seems to have a lot of benefits. Like if you want to change a model's hair or clothing, getting comfortable with doing this kind of mix and matching of reference for studies can pay off if I have to do it for a client someday, and I don't have to freak out because, oh no, I can't find a shirt like that, or a model doesn't have that hair. I can be more comfortable that I can fill in the gaps with my imagination, along with my extensive and faithful usage of reference for key items like anatomy, lighting, folds of fabric, etc. So as I'm putting on the final details of my painting here, I'd just like to thank you for sticking around, and I hope my ramblings haven't traumatized you. Maybe your morbid curiosity is keeping you around. I don't have any more stupid jokes. You're safe. I just appreciate being able to have the space to show my work and record my inner thoughts that hopefully you have gleaned some enjoyment of, maybe even feel a little inspired by. I had a lot of fun making this, and it took a lot of work, but hopefully it'll get easier as I go on, if I'm still allowed after this. But if you have any comments or suggestions, I'd love to hear them down below, and you can follow me on Instagram at snoonsart, one word, if you want to see more of my art. Bye.